Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli back with another review video, and with me, of course, my dad, aka Little Blue, and yes guys, the time has finally come for us, me and him, and good thing that it's both me and him doing this, because yes, this one Spielberg movie that is celebrating its anniversary. This film that definitely for sure made Spielberg a big-time name, and this is what really got him, high up in, his directing business. This launched him and such fully, because the first few films that he did before this one, yeah, not bad, but still, this is what really launched him and such, and what he would do next. And I'd say that, yeah, this film definitely being in the Mount Rushmore of Spielberg films. Wouldn't you say so?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Pretty much, yeah. So that's right, guys. Me and my dad, we are finally reviewing from 1975, Universal Pictures and Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Yes. So, Jaws, I don't know where to start off, and obviously, yeah, as always, with the first things that we have to say about the movie and what we think of it. I'll go first, because mine's very quick, because, I honestly can't remember when I first watched and was introduced to Jaws. I mean, I seem to recall that, yeah, even at a young age, I was familiar with, say, the iconic poster of the shark, in the water.
Oh, yeah.
And, eventually, having seen the movie, and no doubt for me, at a younger age, well, I enjoyed Jaws, and, because Jaws was unlike any movie. It was definitely in that line of movies in the 1970s, from this, The Exorcist, the first Star Wars, Superman. Need I go on? Because the 1970s was a really big decade for movies.
It was.
Yeah, and like I said, this movie is what solidified Spielberg, what made him a big name, and the next movies that he would do after this. And already, because Spielberg being a prominent staple of, doing some films for Universal Pictures. And yeah, not to mention that in the later years, and with Jaws' big success, well, because, because we would get a couple of Jaws sequels, if we even asked for them, and how Jaws being a prominent staple of, say, Universal Studios, of course. You had the Jaws ride, and you had, the Jaws location/section in the Universal backlot, and so on, and, just over the years, the love and appreciation Jaws has gotten, and, we would get more shark movies that, I don't know, I guess they tried to be in the same vein as Jaws, I don't know, but let's face it. I'm sure that some later movies that has to do with sharks, some have turned out okay, but let's face it. The first Jaws movie is what's the word I'm looking for? It's the ultimate movie that has to do with sharks.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, so just overall, for me, obviously, I love Jaws. It's in my top favorite Spielberg movies. How can it not be? There's no denying, because it's a classic from Universal. Spielberg's and the Mount Rushmore of Spielberg's movies. Just what more do I have to say? With a great story, great cast, everything to it. And the more we'll talk about it. But, all right, now the floor is yours. What are the first things you have to say about Jaws?
Well, like you said, a lot of great movies came out in the 1970s. Jaws coming out in 1977. 75, rather, sorry.
No, 77 was Star Wars.
That's what I had in my mind, was Star Wars. So, excuse me, 75, when Jaws came out, I remember going to the theater to see it.
I don't think we've really, off camera, I don't think we've really talked about, say, Jaws in your early experience, but yeah, because you got to experience in theaters?
I did get to see, and it was not just a theater, it was a drive-in movie theater, which you hardly ever see them anymore.
That was, coincidentally, that Tom Cruise had that same experience too, because,
It was interesting because we were in the back of my uncle's pickup truck, and we had blankets, we had a mattress, because I think this was sometime in September, and it was kind of cool outside at night.
And just before fall weather came in.
Exactly, and so we watched it. We watched it there, and it was it did make you a little leery about going back in the water.
Pretty much, and yeah, that whole subject, we'll talk about it more further, but for now, just, continue with what you're saying.
And so, and it makes you think, and everything that relates to sharks always somehow relates back to Jaws in a lot of people's minds. And like, for instance, where I go to Myrtle Beach, which is really not Myrtle Beach proper, it's Ocean Lakes. It's just just down the coast, a little farther south. But off the coast of Myrtle Beach recently, they discovered a very large great white shark that was being tracked because it had a tracker on it.
Yeah.
It was enormous. I think it was...
back then, they weren't able to do something like that with sharks, but now you can, so...
I think it was like 15 feet long. It was just huge. And, you think about getting in the water
in the movie,
and you think, geez.
in the movie Jaws, they had their way to track the shark, so...
Yeah, they did. And
but until we get there, talk more about it later.
Exactly.
But continuing with what you were saying about Jaws?
Well, it was just an icon. That poster,
life-changing experience
for a lot of people. Yeah, not so much for me, but it.
Well, and also there had never been a movie like this one, so
no, there'd never been a movie like this one, and the way Steven Spielberg painted the suspense and built it up, and the music,
John Williams,
those three bars, that dun, 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 that absolutely is killer music.
Yes.
Very ominous sounding.
The movie doesn't waste its time when it opens with that. So.
No, it doesn't. And it is, to say the least, a classic.
Yes. And wouldn't you consider this like in your top favorite of Spielberg's movies, Jaws?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And here's another thing. I don't think we've talked about this either off camera and so on. The many movie conversations we've had besides when you've joined me doing reviews, like, was Jaws your first introduction to Spielberg, or did you knew Spielberg before this?
It was when I first found out who he was.
Yeah.
I had already been exposed to Spielberg in the show called the movie.
Well, I mean, Night Gallery. Well, Spielberg was involved in Night Gallery, but
but he actually directed the movie Duel.
Yes, and after
starred Dennis Weaver,
and then after
who was being chased by this truck through this whole movie, he's being chased, and it really gets intense, and you can't even see who the driver is in this truck because like all the windows are blacked out. It's like the thing almost is possessed.
Yeah, kind of almost sounds like a Twilight Zone vibe.
Yes, it does. And
well, because Spielberg being a huge fan of the Twilight Zone, so obviously that having a big influence on Duel.
That was a made-for-TV movie. It was fantastic, and it's still a classic to me. It's still one that I think I'd put it up against just about any kind of suspenseful drama or thriller that's out there now.
Mm-hmm. And what say, even if you did see it, man, I think the next film that Spielberg directed before Jaws was his first theatrical, that being Sugarland Express.
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen that one episode?
I have never seen that movie, no.
Oh, okay. As we do our review, you have not. But,
I have not seen it as of now.
But I presume, as I recall, Sugarland Express was, because you said Duel was TV. It was a TV movie.
It was a made-for-TV movie,
right.
But it was very well done.
Okay. But my point being on Sugarland Express, that was Spielberg's first big-screen movie. Not to mention, I believe Sugarland Express was also the first time that Spielberg and John Williams had collaborated.
Right, and I'm going to double check.
And from there on, by all means, yeah. And well, I mean, and here's the thing about Sugarland Express very quickly, because Sugarland Express, it did pretty well. It was a pretty big success for Spielberg, but just again, it was Jaws, the next movie for Spielberg's, that really what made him go big. And especially for John Williams, because, hey, after doing the music and score for John Williams, look what he would do next. Yeah, going full-time big with movies and such. Most notably Star Wars. So, but yeah, so anything else to say about Jaws? Because, with your first things to say?
Well, like I said, it's a classic. It's the intensity of the movie. The drama, the suspense,
great acting.
Great acting. I mean, it's
the fact that this movie takes place almost entirely in the actual ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
I cannot find anything. Oh no, it was Steven Spielberg's movie Duel, which came out in 1971, was released as part of the ABC Movie of the Week series on November. It aired November 13th, 1971. A theatrical release followed internationally with an extended version of the film containing additional scenes.
Okay,
now that's very interesting.
It did end up being theatrical.
It did internationally, so
Right.
it was certainly worthy of a big screen release.
Yes,
But it started out as an ABC Movie of the Week in 1971, which is hilarious.
yeah. And just how Spielberg started off directing a movie, so...
Yes.
Yeah, but just, overall, with what the first things we've had to say about Jaws, you heard it right there, but talk more about it as we break it down. So, as always, now that me and him have finished with the first things we've had to say about Jaws, now, as always, read the description / the story. You can take it from here.
Yeah, and there's a word here. I kind of did an overview of it, and I saw a word that I've never seen this word before in my life. I'm going to butcher the... Let me get to it. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation.
Hey, we've all been there, and God knows how many times I've always butchered names in the reviews.
Okay.
If it's just me alone.
So here's the overview. When a young woman is killed by a shark while skinny dipping near the New England tourist town of Amity Island.
Amity.
Yeah, Amity Island. Police Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, wants to close the beaches, but Mayor Larry Vaughn, played by Murray Hamilton, overrules him, fearing that the loss of tourist revenue will cripple the town. Here's the word.
Oh, wait, it's this one, right?
I've never seen this. And I'm going to say he was an oceanographer, but it's spelled...
Ologist, for one thing, but the word up
it's
front.
spelled ICHTHYOLOGIST. Ethiologist, that's the only way I know how to pronounce it. I'll look up the pronunciation later when you're talking it. But
Kind of sounds about right.
But that's Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, of course.
Yeah.
And grizzled ship captain, whom we all loved, Quint,
Yes.
Robert, played by Robert Shaw, offer to help Brody capture the killer beast, and the trio engage in an epic battle of man versus nature. And that is it in a nutshell, really. But there's so much detail.
Yes! And thus we're about to do so. Now that we finished reading the description / the story, we shall now break it down. So obviously we have to talk about, like, say, the opening to Jaws.
Yes.
Yeah, because the opening to one after the classic Universal logo, the amazing opening credits with John Williams music, then we cut to these teenagers, this, like, campfire, and, because one of the first characters we see is Christy, and also because the one boy character, which one was it? Was it Cassidy, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah, played by Jonathan Feely, because and Chrissy being played by the late Susan Backlini, and they kind of flirt with each other some, and like going for a swim, and she's the first one that makes it to the ocean completely butt naked.
She strips down naked.
Yeah. But as for what's-his-face, he's too drunk, and he's
trying to get undressed, and he just ends up passing out on the beach,
tumbling and just like flat out on the beach.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And just cutting back to him, just like, I'm coming, I'll be right there. So, but what do you have to say about the opening?
Well, the opening is where the suspense builds.
This is where it begins.
This is where it builds and begins, and it's
where the madness begins at the Amity Island,
and just this brutal, vicious attack on this young girl by this shark.
Yeah.
And, knocks her into a buoy, and she's holding on for dear life.
Yeah, trying to hold on to the buoy, but the buoy's not that much for her, and
it grabs onto her and just starts slinging her every which way.
And starts to pray,
Yeah, and she's, he gets her. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
And it's a brutal death. It's shocking to see on screen, and I think that's a lot of audiences were shocked by that. Thinking, could a shark really do that? Well, yeah, a shark can do that, especially a great white if they set their mind to it. But
yeah, if you bug them, then they will. So
yeah, exactly.
And then by the next day, because it's just a normal day. Not to mention that this movie taking place around the time with 4th of July on the way.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, with Chief Brody himself, the late Roy Scheider. Because what are the first things we have to say about Chief Brody?
I love Chief Brody's character. He was he was a no-nonsense kind of cop. He'd come from the city and went to work as the chief of police on Amity Island, and because he wanted a kind of a more, I guess, a quieter setting to be a law enforcement officer.
True.
And
Understandable.
He had no idea what he was in for. He got a quick education on sharks,
Yes, he did.
and
So already, good thing, because he knew a lot about sharks.
by the time they go to sea with Captain Quint, but he still has a lot to learn, and Quint obviously has a lot to learn because Quint underestimates this shark.
Little does Quint know that this is unlike any shark he's dealt with.
Yeah, and Matt Hooper seems to be a little more in tune with it, just simply because, and I did get the correct pronunciation, ichthyologist.
Ah, good,
Ichthyologist. So that is the correct pronunciation.
I had a feeling that sounded about right.
And that is, the meaning is, they're a zoologist who studies fish. So he was in effect an oceanographer, which is the study of marine life, and that's what he did. And he knew a lot about sharks. So he was the expert that Brody brought in to Amity Island to try and find out what was going on and see if this was a shark attack, what it was. And he of course proved that it was. And so then they have to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah. But let's not jump too far into the film, because then at one point, because there's a report that comes to Brody about what happened the other night, and seeing the remains of Chrissy, just the shot of the hand and so on.
Oh yeah. He's the deputy is like, he's retching on the beach. I mean, he's just
after blowing the whistle,
sick, physically sick.
Well, him and what's in face as well, and when Brody makes the report of this on paper and such, And also, can't forget to mention Brody's family, of course. Ellen Brody, played by Lorraine Gary, and, Michael Brody and Sean Brody, being played by the late Chris Rebello and Jay Mello. So, anything to say on Brody's family?
No, they were just, the boys were boys, they adventurous, and they didn't see any danger in anything until Michael Brody actually, has that experience, he has an encounter.
But until we get to that, But then, and to speed things up some, because, the sequence where, because everybody is out on the beach, and Brody's doing his best to keep an eye, and seeing some certain things happening out the beach, and where, to Brody it seems like, oh, is that the shark? But no, just, anything on that sequence?
No, I think you explained it pretty well. I mean, it's
from, say, Alex Kintner going out with a raft and seeing a dog, playing fetch in the water.
Yeah, and the dog doesn't come back.
Nope. Nobody didn't even realize that the dog went missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is until, say, Alex Kinter, being played by Jeffrey Voorhees. That's where people do start to notice this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with John Williams music, and just that one piece of music where, as the camera pans straight up to Brody's face, oh, that's so good.
Oh, it's very good, because he's just like,
yes!
and he's trying to see, but it's just like it happens all of a sudden,
Yeah.
And, of course, he gets, Mrs. Kintner blames him.
She blames him later on when she did find out about, last week with Chrissy. So.
That he knew that there was a shark out there, and he didn't close the beaches down, didn't do anything about it. And he couldn't, because the mayor was telling him, I guess the mayor hired him, and the mayor was technically his boss, so he had to do what the mayor told him to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, because Mrs. Kintner, played by Lee Fierro, if I'm getting the last name right. By the way, I don't know if you knew this, but I just feel like, I just feel like mentioning this. She sadly passed away of COVID. So yeah. But also, here's a positive note. At one point, and this was years later, of course, Jeffrey Voorhees, he reunited with his on-screen mother when she showed up at a restaurant that he actually owned.
I remember this story.
You knew about this?
Yeah, I remember this story. And I thought
that was delightful.
That was very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and very touching, because,
yes.
On-screen mother and son reuniting like that.
Exactly.
And by the way, because Mayor Vaughn...
Mayor Vaughn,
Yeah, played by the late Murray Hamilton. let's talk about the mayor, because what are the first things we have to say about the mayor?
Well, the mayor does not want to stir a panic in the town because it's tourist season, and that's how the people of Amityville and all the businesses make their money, is on the tourists that spend their tourist dollars.
And again, around the time of 4th of July.
At Amity Island, exactly. So he's trying to protect that. He's trying to protect his, the businesses there, and trying to keep it hush, not do anything about it, but to keep it hushed, tamped down, so to speak, until they can determine what it is. And he's hoping that they can kill this thing before anybody else dies.
Yeah. And that's not, and here's the thing, because the mayor in Jaws is not a bad man. He's just trying to do his best, and, because obviously he wouldn't want anything bad happening to everybody if the shark would to emerge, but still.
But he's also in denial, because he's in total denial, because when Matt Hooper comes on to the island, played by Richard Dreyfuss.
Yep.
And
good old Richard Dreyfuss.
He and
by the way, fun fact about Richard Dreyfuss: it was thanks to George Lucas that got Richard Dreyfuss to be in this movie, because George Lucas, who had worked with Dreyfuss on American Graffiti, recommended to Spielberg, "Why don't you hire Richard Dreyfuss for this movie?"
Yeah.
And thus, it's thanks to George Lucas that Dreyfuss would make a full big-time name of himself with this.
So they go out on a boat. They go out on Hooper's boat. And he's got all this technical equipment, and he goes
and the chemistry between Hooper and Brody seems to be pretty good, so they're getting along pretty good, and with trying to so far investigate on the shark and such.
Right, and a fishing boat had gone missing.
Ben Gardner.
Ben Gardner's boat was missing.
We did see Ben Gardner early on in the movie, and Ben Gardner was played by Craig
Kingsbury.
Kingsbury, yeah.
But the boat had gone missing, so they tracked it. They knew where he was last seen, and he was able to use sonar equipment, and he found the boat underwater. Mm-hmm. So he dives down, and of course he's, there's a big hole inside of the boat, and the one.
And he did find a tooth of the shark.
He found a tooth of the shark, but he finds this hole in the boat. The side of the boat, he's shining the light.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this head comes floating down, and it's the look on us like, it's just
with one eye missing.
And that's the moment
Hooper's
where
screaming underwater,
and he drops the tooth.
So
and goes flying back to the top.
That was the
surface.
That was the one big evidence that they could have had, and to show the mayor.
Exactly. So when they confront the mayor.
Oh yeah, and pardon my French, but Hooper does not give shits with the mayor. You know what I'm saying? He won't put up with the mayor's attitude. So.
He's laughing at the mayor because they're looking at this.
Even when he points that out to Brody, I'm not going to stand here and talk with so and so.
Well, he says, I'm not going to stand here and talk to a guy who's lining up for a hot lunch.
There you go.
But he's pointing to the billboard that somebody had put graffiti on.
Of course, we have to mention the billboard.
He said, and he told the mayor, he said, look at that billboard carefully. He said, because based on everything I've seen, he said, all the evidence we have, he said, those dimensions are right. And with the size of that shark fin following that guy on the surfboard, I think he was on a surfboard.
No, it was a lady.
It was a lady on it. Okay,
on a floaty.
A raft.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
A floaty raft.
But anyway,
help a shark.
And exactly. That was also painted on. And so, he just walks away. He's just like, screw this. I'm not gonna get involved in this. If this guy's, he was in total denial because he said, you remember the mayor said, they were describing this tooth, and he says, but
where's the tooth? I had an accident.
You don't have the tooth. You dropped the tooth. You don't have the tooth. And he was just like, he wants concrete evidence because that's what's keeping him going, and that's what's keeping the beaches open.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And also because, it was pretty funny because with that poster being painted, the mayor wanting those who did that just hung by their necks, or however he puts that. It just
hung by their Buster Browns.
Exactly, yeah. Also, that sequence where there was a meeting, after the incident with Alex, And yet, some people, this is like a political moment where they don't think it was a shark or something, you know?
Yeah.
And then, Quint's introduction. Like, what a heck of a way for him to be introduced in this movie where he gets everybody to shut up where he scrapes on the chalkboard.
Exactly. I love the one line he says. He says, "These fish swallow you whole."
Yeah. You all know me, how I make a living.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I will mention this because I take it you know what? It doesn't fail for anybody because you as well can never stand the sound of him scraping the chalkboard.
Doesn't bother me at all. I can do it myself.
Yeah, you know what? And here's the thing: it's never bothered me the way it sounds on the in the movie.
I can take my fingers and go down the chalkboard and just go, and it doesn't do anything to me. Some people, it sends them over the edge. I will tell you what sends me over the edge.
Well, and that definitely got everyone's attention, and Quint definitely got them to shut the heck up. So.
The one thing that does send me over the edge is styrofoam rubbing together. I can't stand that sound.
Styrofoam
Rubbing together.
For me, yeah, I'm on the same territory too, but it's wet rubber moving together or something. I don't know how to really put at it. Just something like that. I don't know. I don't really know how to put at it.
Okay.
I'm kind of in that same territory like you.
There's actually a funny YouTube video and I think it's on Instagram too, and it's been on Facebook, of a girl that's talking about the fact that she can't stand styrofoam when it's rubbing together, and she can't even hardly talk because she's got this styrofoam container and she's opening it up and it's making it. She's going, whoa, whoa. And this guy, it's like a split screen, and this guy it's a reaction video.
Her gagging. So.
It's a reaction video, and the guy's cracking up. I mean, he is. Of course, I'm cracking up when I watched it the first time because I can relate to it.
Yeah, it's just with you describing it makes me laugh too. So,
yeah, exactly.
And by the way, because more on Quint, and Quint being played by the one and only late Robert Shaw. And let me ask you this, because I meant to bring this up, because was Jaws maybe your first introduction to these group of actors? You know,
it was indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd never seen Robert Shaw act. I'd never seen Roy Scheider. I'd never seen Richard Dreyfuss act.
Not even you didn't see American Graffiti when it first came out, did you?
I have yet to see that movie, and
No, we did watch it.
Oh, that's right, we did.
That one.
You're right. That one, yeah. That one with yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't go to the theaters to see it.
Okay, you didn't see it in theaters, but yeah. But when seeing Jaws, that was your first introduction to Dreyfuss.
Right. And I can tell you, and I'll throw this in. I don't know if I've ever thrown this in on any of your reviews, but Roy Scheider, there's an interesting story about Roy Scheider that when I was at West Virginia State University now, when I was in advanced filmmaking class, and or actually it was beginning filmmaking, and I took advanced filmmaking as well. But the beginning filmmaking class, we had the students in that class. We were given cameras, motion picture cameras, and we were to go out and film something on spring break because it was spring break coming up. We were off for a week. Now there were people in my class who were who lived out of state, and there were one or two in there who were from New York.
Right.
This one guy takes his camera, goes to New York City, and he's filming in New York City, and he pans around. And they're standing on the street corner.
Oh,
is Roy Scheider waiting on a taxi cab, and he sees that he sees the camera, and he starts kind of mugging for the camera and starts posing and doing stuff, and kind of laughing, and this guy comes back to class, comes back to our filmmaking class.
That's nice to see that. That's nice to see that Roy was a good sport right there. So.
Yeah, and he's like the only guy in our class that had bragging rights to say, yeah, my film stars Roy Scheider, I mean, or he has a cameo appearance in my movie. That was
there you go.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we all tripped out when we saw that.
I was literally about to ask, do you have any recollection, how you and the others reacted to that?
Yeah, we were just
to seeing Roy Scheider.
We were tripping out, man. I mean, we were just going. It was mind blowing.
And this is obvious. This is obviously after Jaws was made, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
This was 1980. This was 1984. 1984. So less than 10 years after Jaws had been released.
Actually 9 years. Because
but I mean, what I'm saying is, it was, was less than 10 years. So
Yes.
it was 9 years
Because
since Jaws had been made.
1985 marking the 10th anniversary of Jaws.
And Roy Scheider had played in other films, and he was a well-known actor.
Yes.
A very well-known actor. So to get him on camera like that, and to get him to pose and mug for the camera and goof around, I mean, that was just...
And I'll also mention this, like, Scheider was this close to being in, was it Deer Hunter? Yeah, I believe so.
I think I heard that.
But, he would have been in that movie, but, he wound up being in the first Jaws film, in the first Jaws sequel, I mean.
Right.
Yeah. But, let's also talk about the one moment where they captured the wrong shark.
It was a tiger shark, and they bring it in, and of course it's, he gets permission, Matt Hooper gets permission, well, Sheriff Brody gets permission to cut it open.
Yeah, especially, like, it can't stay right there because it'll stink the whole dock. So.
Yeah, and they were wanting to cut it open right there, and the mayor stepped in and said, we're not going to cut a fish open, a big shark open, and let that, that kid come, falling out of his belly.
The kid's guts spilling out.
Right out on the the deck. So, which I get his point on that, obviously. So they took it into some kind of a warehouse, and they
and what they found was the total opposite.
Yes.
Yeah, even briefly, Quint on his orca boat can see what was going on. He was laughing because he knew they caught the wrong shark.
Well, and it wasn't big enough for one thing. And tiger sharks they're very aggressive and they're very dangerous, but they don't get to nearly the size of a great white shark
because
they'll eat anything, as you saw was evident when they pulled that license plate out of its belly.
Yeah, but because here's the thing: the main shark of Jaws, it's a great white, correct?
Yeah.
By the way, the shark is nicknamed Bruce. Now,
I remember that.
This has nothing to do with Finding Nemo, obviously, because Bruce was named after someone that Spielberg knew. So yeah, hence the nickname Bruce. By the way, because I feel like mentioning this already, because you of course know the hit. Like, of course, when it came to the making of Jaws, like, man, did they struggle with the animatronic shark out in the ocean.
They did. They really did. They had a lot of problems with it, and it was just unbelievable.
And best said by Richard Dreyfuss, whenever he has brought up the behind the scenes of Jaws and with the shark, is, the radio sponsors, just everything, the radio transmissions, and, because the shark is not working, so cupping his hands, and just best way that Dreyfuss has put at it.
Exactly.
And also, because the mayor is wanting those beaches to be opened around 4th of July, because, those beaches will be open this week.
Yeah.
And that sequence where, because they have the beach open, thousands of people are there. However, because out in the ocean, the police forces are out there.
There's the Coast Guard's out there. They've got boat patrols going back and forth. So, I mean, I will say that if in a case like that, I would feel safer knowing that they were watching that closely.
Yeah.
But then the water empties, everybody's screaming and running, and
supposedly there's a shark, but it's these two idiot boys.
that had scuba suits on, and they had a fin made up of fin, and they were floating it across the top of the water, and people freaked out, which was really stupid.
The younger kid, and the younger boy was like, "He made me do it."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they probably definitely would get a whooping after that.
Oh, and get a talking to from the authorities, no doubt.
There you go. Yeah,
because that's a false alarm, and that's a serious offense.
Yeah. And by the way, an interviewer that we see, I believe, because Peter
Benchley appeared as himself. Well, he appeared as a reporter, but it was Peter Benchley, is what I'm saying.
The author of
Jaws.
Jaws itself. Do you happen to know? Because I'm sure that he was very fond of the movie itself.
He was. I read the book. I don't remember a lot about it.
Yeah, because keep in mind, guys, that Jaws is based off of a book. So
exactly, and the book, of course, as most books do, it went into much more detail, and it was also more brutal in the book, and he described it well.
Did you read the book before or after Jaws, the movie itself?
I read it after I saw the movie Jaws, because I thought, I'm going to get this book and read it, because this is, this movie's based off this book, and it's got to be, it's got to be good.
And you just said that what was from the book and with what was adapted in the movie, just very almost accurate, close to the book.
Yeah, yeah. It was very close to the book, but the book went into some more detail that I can't remember.
Well, I mean, obviously, obviously, it never fails. Not every movie adaptation of books are gonna have everything.
No, you can't get everything into it, but
exactly.
It was a good book, I can tell you.
And then coming up to the part where, one of Brody's sons almost having a close encounter with the shark.
Yeah, that was when it was really the way that was shot. When they're pulling him out of the water, that shark goes right by him.
Yes,
and the look on his face, he's in shock. And they get him out. They get him out of the water, and of course, when they're dragging him out of the water, they're showing the camera angle. You're not seeing his legs yet, and then or his feet. And then when they finally pull him, you really. I mean, I think the audience breathed a collective sigh of relief. I did, because when I saw it, oh, good, he didn't lose it. He didn't lose any limbs.
No, every part of his body's okay.
Every part of his body's okay, but he's, his mother's like, oh, he's dead. And she says, no, Brody knew.
He's in shock.
He's in shock because Brody was a trained police officer, and he knew what that looked like.
Exactly.
So they got him to the hospital.
And
he was fine. He recovered fine.
And this one guy on a boat, who came up to Brody's son and the others on their very own boat, because when he got attacked by the shark, I'm sure you know this, right? Because he didn't have shoes on. When we see his one leg in the water, he has a shoe on.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how that happened. Maybe I'm taking a guess. I probably am wondering they must have shot that first with the leg shot. I don't know.
He was on the boat. He was on a boat. He
didn't
have shoes on.
Actually, no, he didn't.
Well, then that was obviously a.
No, I've seen this, and even
a blooper in the film.
Yeah,
but
just that shot where the shark in the water, you can see it through the water and going after him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, that shark scared the crap out of a lot of people, I think, watching that movie, because it was a type of drama. It was a type of thriller. And it was a thriller.
Even that shark made its way to the top list of villains of AFI. So
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Because technically, the shark in Jaws is a villain, right?
Yeah, well, it is. But then you have to remember back what Matt Hooper says when he is talking to. He's trying to reason with the mayor in the beginning when they're standing there in front of that billboard that's got graffiti on it, the shark fin, and he says, "This is really a perfect eating machine." He says all they do is eat and make little baby sharks. That's all they do. And sharks have to move continuously. They can't stop and sleep. They have to keep moving continuously.
They don't get a wink of sleep.
Yeah, they don't need it, or they can sleep while they swim, and that may be
probably. But yeah, I mean, after the whole thing of Michael Brody almost getting eaten by the shark. Yeah, now Brody means business, going after the shark.
And Brody, when his son, they find out his son is okay and everything, he goes to the mayor, takes him into an examination room,
confronting
him, and he says, "You're going to sign this."
But at least the mayor, the mayor, then saying that that his kids were on the beach.
Yeah, and the mayor is
putting his own kids at risk.
The mayor is shocked back to reality. He knows they've got to go after the shark. They've got to stop it.
Yeah, he screwed up. So.
And so he signs this.
He now gives in to hire Quint basically.
Yeah, and then the next thing is they go to board the boat.
Yeah, and even Hooper didn't even meet Quint early on, so
yeah, and it's funny because the dynamics between those two, I loved it. Quint and Matt Hooper, they're Quint keeps going. He says, "What are you, some half-assed astronaut?" When he sees all that equipment, and he just constantly berates and teases Matt Hooper mercilessly, and at one point when the shark has chased them and they're in the water,
because by this point with hiring Quint finally, because the majority of this movie is just those three out on the Orca in the ocean, even Ellen briefly seeing Quint and finds him scary at first. But yeah, even Ellen, the last time we see her in this movie, she just runs off crying because it's understandable because what are the chances for her husband?
She's worried that they're going to get out there and they're going to get killed, eaten by sharks.
Exactly.
So,
but thankfully, no. But until we get there, just go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So he just teases him mercilessly until they are in the boat and they're telling stories. And
yeah, like that one sequence that it's actually one of Spielberg's favorites, where because one evening
they're showing each other their scars and the
stories that they share. They get to know each other some more.
And the story that Quint shared about being on board that battle, I think it was a battleship that was sunk.
Which one was which? Quint or
Captain Quint.
Okay,
and he is talking about the fact that he was on board that ship, and they all had to, the ship was sinking, so they had to get life preservers and just float until somebody found them. And there were tiger sharks all around, and there were he survived, but not many did. That's in truth, in reality, a lot of sailors lost their lives to sharks. When they were floating in the water waiting for a recovery vessel to come pick them up. And I think they floated for a long time, days maybe, before they even found them.
Yeah.
And Quint talks about his buddy, that they were both floating together. And he looks up, and when it's daylight, he looks over and his buddy is, his head's down and he thinks he's asleep. And he's trying to wake him up. And when he pushes him, he upends and his lower half is missing. And
right,
that's when it gets serious, and they're just Hooper and Brody are just absolutely they're speechless. They're flabbergasted.
Yeah. I'm just pulled because I might as well bring her up because she had a big part in being a part of the making of Jaws.
Dr. Vic Pettimore.
Yes, because I don't know about you, but I've seen this. I thought this was really good. On Disney Plus, I had watched this documentary all about her and, about her life and just, about when she became an expert in sharks and when most prominently in the documentary, she became a part of Jaws, and helping out those that did Jaws. So I just thought I'd mention her because, her huge involvement in helping out with Spielberg and the others of Jaws, but, and while we're on that subject still, because, you were there, of course, do you have any recollection of, because when Jaws, after the release of Jaws, because, people were terrified to go back in the water, but to top it off, people were starting to hunt sharks.
Yeah.
And constant talk shows that her and her partner at the time were going on. They were trying to let everybody, the world, know that sharks are not dangerous if you leave them alone. But, and as I watched this documentary, and I'm sure you guys know what documentary I'm talking about, if any of you like me had watched this on Disney Plus, well, because she had went on those talk shows and publicity and such, and because of Jaws, her explaining that the sharks are not dangerous, and if you leave them alone, if you don't do anything to them, they won't bother you. You won't bother them, they won't bother you, but nobody listened.
I had an experience a few years ago. I was out on a pier at Myrtle Beach. Well, I wasn't in Myrtle Beach. I was a little farther down. I can't remember exactly what it was called, the place it was, but it's in the area of Myrtle Beach. And we were, me and a buddy of mine were out on a pier fishing, and there was another guy. He caught several fish down from us, and he was cleaning them and cutting them up. And of course, there's blood and there's all these fish parts, and he's got them and he's putting all the guts and everything in a bucket, and there were brown sharks swimming below in the water around this pier. And so he said, I mentioned something to him. I said, if you throw those in, I want to get that on video. So he told me, I'm getting ready to throw it in. So I got my camera phone and videoed. I've still got it.
Yeah, I don't think you've shown me. You have to show me that.
And he throws that bucket into the water. And of course, it's about 30 feet down to the ocean surface where they fall. But as soon as that hits the water, it was just a frenzy, a mad frenzy. You could see fins and everything, and it was brown sharks. Now, at the same time,
sharks going mad for food.
you could see them from where we were, our vantage point, and I had on
Like this
polarized-
is like this is the ocean. And,
I had polarized sunglasses on, which can actually help you see below the surface of the water to a certain degree.
Oh,
But
cool.
I could see
Cool.
those shark swimming back and forth, and literally like 200 yards up the beach here, there were people in the water. People were in the water swimming, and here are these brown sharks just going crazy, you know. And the water's being chummed up, and you start thinking, "Geez, man, do I need to yell to this guy and say shark?" But
just like in the movie Jaws.
my buddy told me, he said they don't, the brown sharks, they don't bother anybody. All they're out here for is fish, and they don't even get close to the shore
there
or,
you
or
go.
the people. So you can't.
They don't
just,
they don't care about the people unless you know.
You can't just think that all sharks are bad.
There you go.
There are some, if you're in the water and you know they mistake you for a fish, or they think you're a seal, and they see the movement of your legs,
and they don't have the full sense of knowledge that you know you're not a fish.
They may attack. You know.
Yeah, but you know, point being is that like, and I asked you earlier because do you have any recollection when that was happening? That because people not only being afraid of going back in the water, but people hunting sharks.
I have a recollection, a very vague recollection of it, because this is, you know, after all, this is 1975. I was in 5th grade.
And I don't think, here's another thing, I don't think it was Spielberg's and Universal's, well, I mean, especially Spielberg, it was their attempt, it wasn't their intention to have this movie make people think that, oh, sharks are bad and such, you know, because...
No, it wasn't. It was just a story, you know?
And that's just a movie, you know,
course.
because it's make-believe.
I mean, there's always mistaken...
and that shark wasn't even real, so...
No, well, I remember hearing stories off the coast of California. There was a woman, she was out with her family, and they were in a boat. Her husband and kids were in the boat.
Yeah.
And she was on a kayak. And she was just
oh boy
out, and a great white shark.
Kayak.
A great white shark came up under her, thinking it was like a seal or something.
Oh no!
And just hit the thing, flipped her off of it.
Ugh.
And she landed.
Yeah, I mean that could be something like in Jaws.
She had shoes on. She did have shoes on because she told us in the story. She landed. It flipped her in the air, and she came down and landed on this great white shark's back.
Oh my God!
And it starts out to sea, and it hasn't submerged yet, and she is like surfing this great white shark, standing on it.
Oh
this happened.
Wow!
This actually happened, and she's terrified.
This is my genuine reaction. Maybe the same goes for some of you.
She had to get off that shark, because if she hadn't, it would have taken her out to sea.
Yes.
But then she also knew, or was also terrified, that if she did jump off this shark, that it would double back and come back and get her.
So that's two problems. Just
So, fortunately, she did. She bailed out. She jumped off this shark's back, but there was another boat that saw what was happening, and it came to her rescue, and it got her out of the water really quickly. But she said all she could think about, she wasn't scared for herself. She was scared for her children and her husband, because she said, I did not want them to see me get eaten alive by a shark. And
that being the last thing they would see.
Exactly. But fortunately, she was saved, and the shark kept going.
And that was a big miracle right there.
Yeah, and evidently it thought that kayak was like a seal.
Yeah.
And it hit it, and when it saw that it wasn't, and it wasn't food, it never got sight of her.
Nope.
Because she went up in the air and came down and landed on its back.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's crazy.
That was a story told on Discovery Channel during Shark Week. Yeah.
And see, that's the thing, because a lot of Shark Week stuff that was on Disney Plus, and hence I watched that documentary. Even one documentary that has Chris Hemsworth. So
right.
Yeah. But back to Jaws, because anything else to say on that sequence where they're having that talk inside the orca?
No, it's just that's when they start to bond, really.
Yeah. And that especially goes for Quint and Hooper.
Yeah, and they're singing, they're singing that song,
Show me the way to go home. Bum, bum. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Bum, bum, bum.
And then you see Quint.
Oh, that's I'm just gonna quickly say that is an iconic moment there too, where they're singing.
The boat gets smacked, and Quint reacts.
They also
and then Hooper reacts, and Sheriff Brody's still sitting there going, "Da, da, 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 da," you know, and not even.
And then there's
he
leaks.
stops.
There's leaks coming into the orca.
Exactly, and that's what. And that's when it gets real serious.
Oh yeah, they had a good time for briefly, but yep, it's back to serious business on the shark.
They managed to get a buoy.
Oh, and by the way, they did hear the sounds of whales.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep, that too.
And
the way Quint describes on the whales is interesting. So
they
yeah, and the whole thing on the buoys, of course, because managing to have a buoy be launched and be attached briefly on the shark. So
and it's one of the few movies that in that night sequence that actually catches a meteor going through the sky, which was really cool.
Oh yeah, like actually on film.
Yeah, actually on film. It was really cool.
Talk about perfect timing.
It was perfect timing, but I think it was when they shot that. They hit the shark with the buoy that had the beacon on it.
Yes,
which
the light that flashes
with the flashing beacon on it, and they were able to, keep track of it somewhat. But
their very own way of tracking before like the future technology and what we brought up earlier. So
I mean, it literally became at that point from that point on, it became man versus nature, man versus animal, and a smart animal at that, because this particular shark was. Whether they are or not, they're just like Hooper had said. They're like an eating machine, and that's all they do is eat and make babies and just swim around. That's it. So, but this shark showed calculation, reasoning, and prowess.
Yeah.
Which I doubt that a real shark can do any of those things, except to be able to hunt and attack prey and have the intelligence enough to survive by eating other fish, seals, what have you. But this was, this shark was in the story was extremely intelligent.
Yes.
And that's what they were up against.
Exactly. Again, never, especially for Quint, never having dealt an experience with a shark like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they finally see it as it swims by, and it's like it does a drive-by.
Because, Brody is, dumping some stuff in the water, I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
Yeah, and he turns around and he sees the shark, and he goes to Quint.
And then that quick,
jumps back, and he's got that cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And he goes back, and he tells Quint,
he walks backwards, and
he says, "You're going to need a bigger boat."
that was not in the script, actually.
Was it not?
No, because I think that, as I recall, that was a line that Roy
Scheider.
Yeah, I just there have been times. I don't think I'm not the only one where a good chunk of times for anybody that would accidentally call him Schneider, but there's no N. But my point being is that Roy did just out of nowhere just said that line. So
that's pretty cool.
And the fact that line would become an iconic line in this movie.
Oh, it's absolutely an iconic line in that movie, and it's been used in it's been used in jokes and skits and things, over the years. So it was a stroke of genius on his part to come up with that. I didn't realize it.
Also, very quickly, another mentioning on Roy Scheider, because you brought up a story about Roy Scheider. I will too, because I'm sure you knew about this too. Like one time when when you, me, and my mom, I think we were coming back from Disney and we had a rest stop. My mom noticed this, and then she pointed out to you too. One guy that looked like Roy Scheider. Do you remember this?
No, not really.
Well, yeah, I mean, my mom most prominently has told this, and yeah, because when we were at a rest stop, and this is during our trip to Disney World, I think after we were coming back from Disney, and at a rest stop, my mom noticed this one guy who looked like Roy Scheider. She pointed this out to you, and you were like, "Oh, he does look like." And then she approached this guy and said to him that you look like Roy Scheider, and he didn't know whom she was talking about. But then when she brought up Jaws, oh, him. So I guess that guy was flattered by that compliment. So
evidently so.
Yeah, because and pretty much here's the thing: when you think of Roy Scheider, this. So
yeah.
But, more than just Jaws, obviously, because he had done a lot of other great movies than just Jaws.
Well, and so he, the thing of it is with the way this, to get back to the movie, the way this whole thing plays out, it's a cat and mouse game. They're the mice, and the shark is the cat.
They think they're the cat, and the shark's the mice, but that's the other way around.
The shark turns the tables on them.
unbeknownst to them.
Yeah, and they get they put this is when at one point.
Well, yeah, and at one point, if you're going to mention this too, where Brody tries to radio back at the Amity Island.
Yeah, and
but
he breaks the radio.
Quint does with a bat, and Brody's just, that's just great. Now where the hell they think we're gonna be? Is how he puts at it.
And I don't exactly know why Quint did that, to be honest with you, other than the fact that
it's not really established,
because he wanted to get this shark on his own. He wanted to get this shark because it was like him.
I mean,
against that
along
shark.
with Brody and Hooper, just really like Quint doing it his way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Also, we got to mention that one scene where because Quint's is on a chair and with a fishing rod.
Yeah, and he watches the reel slowly, and he
he knows it's coming, and he prepares himself.
He gets himself strapped in
while Brody's trying to tie a knot.
Exactly, and it turns around. Hey, I got it!
And then boom,
boom, and it's off to the races. And everything that Quint tries, this shark, he realizes.
Then Quint yelling at Hooper, you idiot, do this so and so.
Yeah, exactly, and he keeps, there are just all these things going on, almost chaos on deck, trying to rush around, and the shark almost capsizes him the way he turns on him with that hook. And I think it's at that point Quint realizes that this shark is
not an ordinary
shark,
not the sharks that he's dealt with.
And that's when they get out the shark cage. Mm-hmm. And they put the shark cage together. Hooper gets in it to go down.
Hooper willingly does so, and
and I think he has a very extremely toxic, poisonous dart or tip on this spear gun that would probably kill. I don't even know, that would probably kill 100 men. But it's enough to kill this shark. Mm-hmm. And of course, he goes down. He gets blindsided by this shark.
And there are a few shots of the shark that I think 2 shots where it's actual footage of a shark. And I think with the help of Dr. Vic.
Well, there was at one point during the filming of Jaws. I remember reading this that.
Because I was going to bring something up about that.
So the underwater film crew, they actually, and it was Bruce. But they didn't know that it was. They didn't know if it was a real shark or not, and they fled.
their minds tricking them. Yeah, their minds playing with them, so playing tricks on them, thinking that that's not the animatronic shark.
Exactly. So, but Hooper, of course, the cage gets demolished practically, and he flees under a.
I mean, we see it, right? Because that he finds a way to survive.
Yeah, he finds a ledge to get under, to get away from the shark and hide from the shark. So then, of course,
unbeknownst to Quint and Brody, because they
pull it back up, and there's nothing. So they think he's gone.
Yeah.
So then, that's when the shark finally.
Finally takes advantage, just
plays his hand or plays his fin, I guess you could say, because the boat's really sinking.
It is.
It's going down.
By this point, it's starting to.
And that shark comes up on the deck and eats Quint, which was really gross.
Yeah.
But...
man, that horrific scream that Quint lets out.
Oh, I know. It was horrific. And he...
to think that Quint, the guy who's dealt with sharks before, he gets the one that gets killed by the shark.
He gets killed, and which was really a shock to see that in the movie.
Yeah.
But so then now Brody thinks he
thinks he's the last one
because he thinks Hooper's dead. He's seen Quint die.
Yep.
And so
and with the Orca still sinking.
It's turning up on its side. He's up on the mast, and he's laid up on it, and he saw the shark got into into some tanks.
Yes,
some oxygen tanks.
Yeah, the oxygen tanks were brought up earlier. In fact, Hooper, told them to be careful with those.
Exactly, because they can be highly flammable, highly explosive. But
that was an early taste of what was going to happen next with those tanks.
So there were those tanks in that shark's mouth, and he's coming right at Brody, and Brody keeps firing shots, and he keeps missing. And
just hitting the shark with one of the tanks, and then finally it gets one in its mouth, and then Brody climbing his way up top of the pole of the boat,
and he's firing, and he's laid over like
this.
And
show me the tank, blow up.
Finally he says, "Smile, you son of a."
Yeah, I mean,
right there.
he does say "smile, you son of a bitch," but actually, because the sound
muffled
of
by
it's
the
muffled
sound
by the sound of the gun.
Of the gun, exactly.
Yeah.
So then that's it, and he's like, "Hey!" You know, he's screaming, yelling,
and laughing
because he killed the shark. And then,
all of the shark's parts of the shark are flying and is landing in the water.
And of course, Hooper resurfaces, you know, and he asks about Quint, and he just shakes his head no, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, the last thing you see, they're on a piece of the boat paddling into shore, and one says to the other, says, "What day is it?"
Tuesday, I think.
Yeah, they didn't even know what day it was.
Yeah. I used to hate the water. I can't imagine why. So at least after all that, they find some humor. So after all that, and by the way, because I was going to mention this because, you know, what you brought up about the crew underwater. Well, because here's the thing, because when it came to them shooting the rest of the movie out in the ocean, because here's the thing. Jaws was the first movie to film in the actual ocean. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, because we've got plenty of movies where they have shot in the actual ocean.
Yeah, a lot of times they would use those big water tanks on the set.
Yeah.
Which were really fake.
Yeah. But I mean, with digital and green screen, like, and how far it's come, just, you know, but I mean, here's the thing, because, like, I know that in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and, like, say, Castaway, etc.
Oh, yeah, that was filmed at sea.
Exactly, yeah.
You can tell.
Exactly, and it had to be, especially for the pirate movies.
Exactly.
But point being on Jaws, like, yeah, because again, no film had really shot out in the ocean, but Jaws was the first. And yeah, because, pardon my French, but yeah, it was literal hell for them filming out in the ocean.
Oh, I can imagine.
Like, some of them getting seasick.
Oh, yeah.
And even, like, watching the behind the scenes, Dreyfuss brought up one moment where, you know, poor Robert Shaw, because he was like this, like, and then, like, when Steven yells action, and that's the part where, you know, "Hooper, you idiot!" just letting out bursting out screaming, you know. And after cut, Robert just passed out. So,
oh my gosh, he was seasick.
He was.
Yeah, stomach cramps probably.
I think maybe a few of them didn't get seasick. I don't know, but Robert Shaw was one of them. So,
yeah.
But and again, the fact that the animatronic shark wasn't working a good chunk of times, but it would, you know, and that's another thing, because when it was working, like, you know, the shark is working. And fun fact, the design for the shark animatronic was done by the same guy who was responsible for some of the animatronics at Disneyland, like most prominently Jungle Cruise.
Yep, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
And by the way, because the Orca ship, like, what do we think of the Orca ship?
I thought it was a cool ship. It was just a classic looking old fishing boat.
It was like a lobster boat or something, I think. Shrimp boat. Sorry, shrimp boat.
Yeah, shrimp boat.
Turned into the Orca, and actually, because there's an interesting history of that Orca, because 2 Orcas were built. One for the, like, you know, for the main shots where it's out in the boat, out in the ocean, but the other one was for sinking.
Right.
Like, 2 of them, like, the main Orca making its way to Universal Studios for the backlot. But then, and I'm sure I've shared this with you, like, around the 90s, the Orca vanished from the tour. And Spielberg, he did call up the backlot asking what happened to the Orca. Well, by that point, it was rotting. And what they did, unbeknownst to Spielberg, they cut it up with chainsaws and shipped it for timber. Spielberg went nuts over that.
I figure he did.
I can't believe they did that behind his back, right?
Yeah, I know.
They should have talked with him.
Yeah.
Because they should have preserved that boat or done something. And the same thing happened with Ben Gardner's boat. Ben Gardner's boat had a same kind of fate as the Orca in the backlot. So, yeah, so that's unfortunate for both boats. And as for the Orca 2, it was, you know, placed on this private beach. But with the popularity of Jaws, fans started to discover that Orca. And what they did was get up close, touch, rip pieces of it and sell it on eBay or something.
Of course they did.
And the owner who acquired the Orca 2 was upset by this behavior, decided to cut up the Orca, the second Orca, piece by piece. And here's an interesting thing. Each piece of Orca 2 was added to, a limited edition Blu-ray release of Jaws.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, did you not know about that?
I did not know about that.
Yeah, it's true. That's what happened.
Well, I'd like to get my hands on one of those.
Yeah, imagine that. But yeah, it's unfortunate with what happened to those orcas. And, well, I mean, for, like, I want to say, like, yeah, a quick mention on the animatronic of Bruce, because, well, the models of Bruce had survived a good chunk. But, yeah, But also, but also, yeah, the ending to Jaws, as you just said. But also, yeah, because the way it ends off, it's right after the destruction of the shark, it's blown up, and seeing the carcass, what's left of the shark underwater, and seeing the fin.
Right.
Well, what's it called again? The top of the shark?
The dorsal fin.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, seen that, and having Hooper surviving, and they a small boat, you say, that they find swimming their paddles or something.
No, it's a piece of the boat.
Oh, right. Yeah,
that they're paddling to shore on.
Mm-hmm. And because after that, seeing them making their way back to the Amity Island, and boom, the credits roll.
Yeah.
And it makes you wondering, like, how everybody on the Amity Island reacted to this, that, the shark was taken care of, and, only Brody and Hooper survived.
Yeah, and that would be quite a fish story to tell.
Yeah. I mean, on account of the Jaws sequels, the next three.
Exactly.
By the way, like, do you have any quick thoughts on the Jaws sequels?
I saw one of them, and I saw the second one, and
the second one was Roy Scheider.
Yeah, Jaws in 3D, and it got silly. It got totally silly, and I thought, they lost it.
Then Jaws: The Revenge. That was the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it was a jump the shark moment, so to speak.
Yeah, because I feel Jaws: The Revenge should have been the third Jaws film, because Jaws 3D. It just seems kind of pointless. Well, the fact that Jaws 3D takes place in SeaWorld, I mean, look, you do have the Brody brothers as the main characters, but still,
Yeah, it was...
And Dennis Quaid was one of the Brody brothers, so... Yeah. And for Jaws: The Revenge, because, you had Lorraine Gary as one of the main characters, so, I mean, I will at least give Jaws: The Revenge this, that... It's nice to see that Ellen got to be one of the main characters and coming face to face and dealing with one of those sharks. Yeah. Not to mention that I don't know if you knew this, Michael Caine was in the film too.
Yeah, I do remember he was in the film.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think the older brother of the older Brody brother unfortunately meets his demise at the start of the film, getting eaten by the shark. But I think one's enough, right?
Yeah.
Even Robert Shaw. One more thing on Robert Shaw. He got to see a screening of Jaws 2 before he passed away. And as I recall, his comment after watching it, "I'm glad I wasn't involved in this piece of shit." That's Robert Shaw for you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so what do we think of this? I mean, as far as
our final thoughts and results. Well, for me, I'll start because, again, there's no denying that the first Jaws movie, and again, there's only one superior Jaws film. Is that correct?
Yes,
that's the correct word I'm looking for. The indefinite Jaws.
The definitive.
Definitive. Thank you. Yeah. Because it's true. I mean, look, if you like the sequels, that's your opinion. It's okay. I mean, even Spielberg and Richard Dreyfuss, they were asked to be involved in Jaws 2, but because they didn't have a good experience, they bowed out, and because, they did Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They didn't have that much fun on the first one, so yeah. And I'm pretty sure they found it pointless for there being a sequel, but point being on the first Jaws film, because it's the definitive, right?
Definitive.
Yeah, definitive and only one Jaws film. It is the definitive shark movie.
Yes.
With everything that the first Jaws movie had to offer, with its storytelling, and again, the fact that this was based off of a book, and how it was brought to life on the big screen, this is what made Spielberg become a big-time director, made him go big, and the fact that it made its way to the Academy Awards, and it almost won Best Picture. It would have, but it was, hey, it was nominated, that was good enough. And what Spielberg would do next, what would come next for some of the actors... And with John Williams, his music and score, fantastic. The suspense, the fact that this movie was shot entirely in the ocean, later on. But with the rest of the characters, of course, the setting, everything about Jaws, what it was like to this day. It's a classic of Spielberg's, Universal, altogether just, what more do I have to say? But now we come to you. What are your final thoughts, words, results on first Jaws?
The first Jaws... is the definitive shark movie of all time. There will never be anything to top it.
Nope.
Ever.
Even with the sequels or other movies that have to do with sharks.
It was suspenseful. It was it was electrifying.
Yes.
It kept you on the edge of your seat. Probably, it should go down as I think one of the greatest horror flicks ever made, because it is a horror flick if you think about it.
Yeah,
The shark is a monster.
Is. Yeah,
The shark is a monster that is a predator, an apex predator that is going after humans, going after anything to eat, but is now
and the fact
has
that
a taste for human blood.
Yeah, and the fact that this shark is unlike any shark, as it's established in the movie.
So that would be my. That's just a very brief statement I'll make on it, because Jaws has been explained every way, and really
countless times by others.
It just comes down to the fact that it's just a great movie.
And again, it's a top gem of Spielberg's and the Mount Rushmore of Spielberg's movies. And again, this Jaws is what solidified and made Spielberg a household name.
Yep.
And him becoming the god of movies.
So
god of filmmaking, I should say.
So do I need to guess what your rating is for this?
Well, is it obvious? And for you viewers, well, you start.
5 out of 5 stars.
And for me, 10 out of 10 stars. Duh, because there's no denying that, yes, this dessert, what?
It's a classic.
Yes, there's no denying that this, in fact, dessert for you, 5 out of 5, and for me, 10 out of 10. It rightfully so deserves that.
Yes.
Yeah, so again, for him, 5 stars, and for me, 10 out of 10 stars. Jaws, again, a classic. With all we've had to say, us breaking it down, yeah. And what about you guys? What did you think of Jaws itself? Your first experience for the first time watching Jaws. Maybe some of you got to see it in theaters, re-showings of Jaws, obviously, more than likely. But if any of you, older viewers, maybe got to experience this when it first came out, or, if any of you got to go to the Universal parks, the Universal Studios, and with the Jaws stuff they had there, if any of you got to experience the Jaws attraction, if any of you enjoyed the sequels, but obviously you all would agree that this is the definitive Jaws/shark movie. Your favorite moments, your favorite lines, characters, moments that, because up on the edge of your seats, and if this is one of your top favorite movies of Spielberg's, Universal, overall, what do you think of the first Jaws film itself, with what me and my dad have had to say, with our review, and what did you think of our review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And with all that being said, we thank you very much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed our review of the first Jaws film, the definitive. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and we will see you guys in the next video /review. And any last words?
I must be off.
He says that, as always, and for me, again, we thank you very much for watching. Take care, and until, the Jaws sequels, peace out, and happy anniversary to the one and only definitive Jaws. You're gonna need a bigger boat for sure.